Panthers have a bye week, but there is still plenty to talk about in the NFL. And, of course, Julian Council from Locked On Panthers joining me now. Panthers very closely watching a division matchup today. The Bucs and the Saints going down to the wire. It was the Saints, though, winning that one, and that means that the Panthers are now tied atop the division. Just what were your impressions from that game, first of all, because the Panthers are going to be facing both of these two teams down the stretch now?
Yeah, well, my first impression is the Panthers are here in early December, and they're tied for first place in the NFC South. And just like last week when they upset the Rams, Danielle, they are firmly in control of their playoff fate, which is exactly what you want to have. So it's obviously an exciting time for all Panther fans out there that truly these next two games against New Orleans next Sunday, then at home against Tampa, are some of the biggest games that they have had here in this organization in a long time. So my impression is you're right there, you're in it. And also, Tampa's a team that is extremely gettable at this point in time. Now, the Saints, they already beat Carolina early on this season, so I would think that the Panthers this time around are not going to take them lightly, but the Bucs have now lost 4 out of 5 games, including this game on Sunday. So if you look at just the way they're trending and Carolina's trending, the Panthers, in my mind, appear to be possibly the favorite heading into the final 4 weeks of the season to win the division here in the NFC South.
It really could be coming down to that Week 18 when the Panthers travel to Tampa for their second and final matchup between those two divisional opponents. It's going to be interesting. Going back to the Saints, though, like you mentioned, it is a team that did beat the Carolina Panthers back at home earlier this season, and that was one that they really regretted, and they really want to get that one back. So how do you think they can kind of learn from maybe their mistakes, especially as they're coming off of such a major win? Because something that we've talked about on this throughout the season so far is that they kind of play to the level of their opponent. So when they're playing a really good team like the Rams, they really deliver, but then when they're playing against some tougher opponents, sometimes they have a little bit of struggle. So how do they kind of turn that page as they're heading into New Orleans next week?
I think something we've seen from this team all year long is their ability to bounce back. They bounce back from that 0-2 start. They bounce back from the embarrassing losses against Buffalo and also against the Patriots, but they have not been able to handle success. We saw that after winning those 3 straight games against Miami, against Dallas, and against New York, that they were not able to face off against a team like Buffalo and be competitive. We saw even after they were able to win that game against Green Bay, losing to what was previously a 1-win Saints team. Now they're coming off of their biggest win of the season against the Rams. They had a bye week to get healthy, to get prepared for this final 4-week stretch, and now they're going to wake up on Monday morning or go to bed tonight on Sunday night and see that they are tied for first place. As simple as this, all they got to do is just beat the Bucs twice, and they're in the playoffs. Can they handle success? That's the one thing I want to be able to see them do. They've been able to bounce back, but they have not been able to handle the highs that they've had so far this season. So they had the high last week of beating the Rams. They're having the high today of now being firmly tied with Tampa, 4 weeks left to go. Can they be able to handle that and go into these final 4 weeks and have the focus and attention to detail that's necessary to go out there and to execute these next 4 weeks on these upcoming Sundays and, potentially a Saturday against Seattle?
Right, absolutely. So the Panthers, like you mentioned, they had that 0-2 start to the season, but since then they haven't lost back-to-back games. Every time they lose, they do tend to trend the right way, but it's also trying to maintain that success like you were talking about with keeping that attention to detail as they're going into the final stretch of the season. But for a bye week, we heard a little bit about Dave Canales talking about how the Panthers can benefit, especially on the physical side. We saw, of course, J.C. Horn out last week with the concussion, so he has an extra week to maybe recover. Saw on social media he was actually getting some work in during this bye week. But what are some other benefits that you think this Panthers team can get from having a bye week at this point pretty late on in the season?
I think it's both physical and just emotional. I talked to Austin Corbett after the game last Sunday, and he talked about when he saw the schedule back in May, is like, oh, buddy, Week 14 bye week, that's going to be a long grind. Because if you think about it, these guys have not gotten an opportunity not just to rest their bodies, but to rest their minds since the end of July when training camp started. They have been nonstop for really the last 21 weeks of this calendar year. And that's a lot for someone, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, to be able to get over that. So it's not just the physical nature of it, where obviously J.C. Horn, who's been in the concussion protocol, you should likely get him back. Christian Roseman, who missed the last 2 games, games with a shoulder, with a hip and a hamstring injury. Maybe he'll be back out there come next Sunday down in New Orleans. Trevor Wallace has been banged up. He played that last game against the Rams, but he's been dealing with a shoulder, so I'm sure this week off helped him out as well. Offensively, Cade Mays, their starting centers, missed the last 2 weeks as well. So it's not just physical, but it's also the mental and emotional just weight of being in an NFL season, like it's been the ups and downs, the highs and lows, and now knowing what you have ahead of you. So I think that's also it's beneficial for Carolina having this week off and now going to these final 4-game stretch.
I was listening to some of the post-game conversations after their win against the Rams between Canales at the podium as well as some of the guys in the locker room. And A'Shawn Robinson as well as Dave Canales were saying some of the same things in terms of that the best teams in the NFL are the ones that finish strong and keep that positive momentum. They're still growing. They're not plateauing. They're still finding ways. In what areas do you feel like the Panthers right now are showing that they are still trajecting forward? I would look to Bryce Young right now, seeing the confidence that he has been showing, especially in these big wins. It seems like he's going up, and we saw that kind of mirrored from how last season ended as well.
Yeah, I felt like last Sunday was the first time we've seen true balance offensively with Bryce throwing for over 200 yards, and then seeing that two-headed monster potentially in the backfield in Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle finally play out the way a lot of people would have hoped it was going to play out, like when they found out back in March that Rico Dowdle was signing here in Carolina. So I have both those backs playing well last Sunday in that win. Having Bryce to the last 3 games, having pretty plus passing performances, seeing Jalen Coker have a big moment last Sunday against the Rams, seeing what Tedero McMillan's done all season long, and with the offensive line, even though they've had 10 different starting combinations in their first 13 games, like they've still been able to play to a standard. So when you think about Cade Mays coming back in there, the potential Robert Hunt being healthy and coming back at some point in time during this final 4-game stretch, like that, I think the offense can finally get to a point where they have some balance in the pass game and in the run game defensively. Like they've been good against the run. They've been getting a ton of turnovers of late. That's 6 takeaways the last 2 weeks against the Rams and against the 49ers. That's something late in the year that will absolutely elevate you and put you in a spot to where you can be a division champion. And if you get into the playoffs, potentially have a way to win some games. So the fact that they're finding some balance offensively, at least for a week, they did last week against one of the best teams in the league, and defensively, they're finding a way to take away the ball even when they had some of the injuries they had last week to J.C. Horn and Javon Merrick being out due to suspension. Those are 2 ways I see them trending up heading into the final months of the season.
The Bucs have been dominant in the division over the past couple of years now, but as they are right now tied with the Panthers atop the division, how good is it for the NFC South and for the NFL as a whole to see such competition as we're getting down to the wire? And especially just for fans of these teams who want to make sure their team is playing competitive football in the months of December and into January.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to actually have competition in a division this year. I know Atlanta, they are officially eliminated after they lost today. New Orleans has long been eliminated from the playoff contention. So to have these 2 teams going into it, and you looked at the schedule back when it came out in May, and you saw that there was a possibility if Carolina was able to take that next step this season, and it may be a year ahead of schedule when looking at this rebuild under Dave Canales and Dan Morgan, their head coach and general manager, respectively. You looked at it, you saw, okay, 2 of your last 3 weeks, you got home against Tampa, at Tampa. You could be playing for the division at that point in time. When you look at the NFL schedule, they oftentimes in that Week 18 game, they're trying to find a divisional game that they can put on Sunday Night Football. Now, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. I do believe Ravens-Steelers is also that day, and the Ravens were able to get that win, or the Steelers rather got the win on Sunday. So it's a possibility that could be a game that whoever wins it or the winner takes the division, like that could be one there Week 18. But certainly Carolina at Tampa could potentially be in that spotlight. It's been a long time since Carolina's really been in that kind of a spotlight game. I know they had Monday Night Football a couple weeks ago against the Niners, which was an important game, but to be in a winner-take-all game that the entire nation is watching on Sunday night, that would be cool if that was a situation that they find themselves in. So, yeah, certainly for the NFC South, just for the fans of the Panthers to be in it, and obviously for the NFL to have a division that's going to come down to some pretty crucial games in Week 16 and Week 18. I don't think the league office in New York is hating that at all.
And if the finish to the season is anything like how the Panthers have finished some games this season with some game-winning drives led by Bryce Young, some 2-minute drills where they come back, get the win. It seems like this will be an exciting finish, and we're all going to have this must-watch TV for the last 4 weeks of the season. Of course, Panthers, who are atop the NFC South, heading to New Orleans next week. Then they have 2 more dates with the Bucs left on their schedule and another game with Seattle. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a lot of fun, and the NFC South is going to buckle up really quick. So, Julian Council, thank you so much.
Yeah, anytime.